Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Phumelele Zondi with your technology and social media news. Today I'm in an area of Thandanani just outside Durban where an app is helping locals report some of their issues to the municipality. I'll tell you more about that later in the program. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram News Network at sabc.co.za on email. This week, To The Poll is asking you about your feelings on Android lowering the capacity of the amount of WhatsApp that you can use when you are backing up. We'll tell you more about that and those results later in the program. Firstly, here's what's coming up today. We find out more about the EWS Ops app. We look at venture capitalist funding. And in our conversation, we chat about higher education and whether the future is remote, hybrid, or in the classroom. So these showers, which also have toilet facilities in them as well, were installed in various informal settlements in eThekwini by the municipality. But up until recently, there was really no way for residents of these areas to report any issues, if there were issues, with water leakages in their toilets and showers. This is Thandanani, just outside Durban. Those who live in this informal settlement have public showers and toilets from the municipality. But because they're used by a lot of people, they experience issues like water leaks and blocked drains from time to time. Some of the issues are wear and tear.
The taps are being used by too many people. The taps have been replaced with the plastic taps because they get stolen like almost every day. So the plastic taps are not as strong, and I think the rubbers will have the problem, and that children are using the taps. It's not monitored, the cap every day, whole day. So the kids will be playing and then the taps will break. So you find that the taps get broken that way.
Many informal settlements would have no addresses, so it would be difficult to report issues to the municipality.
We actually capture the faults. So we go to all the cabs that the municipality has. So we'll just go there. What we do is we try and we capture the information for the cab so that the municipality knows what cabs they have. Because some of the cabs, they do not have the cab numbers on them. So the cab is there, but the municipality do not know that they have that cab there. And what also the app does, it captures the location of the app. So we capture the location of the app and we capture the cab number. So that way municipality will have the cab number and know where the location of the app is, which also helps them with their data to know where everything is.
But now there's an app that helps those here with their dilemma. They call it the Ops app.
What happens is you get a lot of faults. You get blockages, you get broken toilets, and often the response time from the municipality is slow. And so with this app, field workers can record those faults quickly, get those through to a database and management, and response teams can go out and repair those faults. The other issue is that where there's a lot of problems, the database is going to start to tell you this is a hotspot. This is an area where there's a lot of problems. We need to do some asset management work. We need to repair some of our infrastructure so we have less problems.
Developed locally and being rolled out with funding from the Innovation Technology Agency, or ITA, it becomes easier to alert those that should fix the problem so water can be saved.
Currently, the municipality uses a lot of analog systems and methods in capturing information. And we as a municipality wanted live data that will help us in decision support, but also at the same time allow us to understand exactly what's happening with live information. And by us working with Kanisa projects as well as TIA, that's Technology Information Agency, has helped us develop a system that would then have live information that we as managers can interact with the field staff.
While used to report water issues here, the app can also assist when communities have other issues, like illegal dumping sites. Community members here at Thandanani say they appreciate this innovation.
Ngicabanga ukuthi into ezosiza umphakathi ngoba ukuze report mhlawumbe izinto ezinjengeyinkinga kanje bekudingeka ukuthi kushawe ama phone call abe yimdanti so kuye kuthatha isikhathi eside ukuthi abantu abazolungisa inkinga ukuthi bafike la. So ngicabanga ukuthi ukushintshela kuma-apps kuzowusiza umphakathi in terms of ukuthi wonke umuntu osebenzisayo la okwazi ukusebenzisa ifoni uzokwazi ukuthi abenefite ngaleyo ndlela le.
The solution helps on assisting in the government's National Water and Sanitation Master Plan, which wants appropriate investment into water resources and services that can help the country save water. This week in our Startup Corner, we're finding out about an app that helps people buy cars online. It's called Car Find Me.
My name is Khawelo Moeja, and I'm the co-founder and owner of Car Find Me. Car Find Me is an all-in-one multi-chat live platform that seeks to improve the vehicle purchase experience and and empower both the buyer and the seller in the comfort of their homes. So what do I mean by that is that when you look at the whole process of purchasing a vehicle, it's quite cumbersome and tedious for the buyer. So it shows you that actually the buyer was not first in mind when this process was actually designed. Right, it puts the banks, it puts the sellers first in mind, and when the buyer, which is the buyer who has got the credit, who's credit worthy, is the one actually who's supposed to be treated as special or given their attention. So if you look at the whole customer journey, when you buy a vehicle, it can take you 3 to 6 months if you're pedantic in terms of what vehicle you're looking for, and you will go through your laptop, go through endless websites, search, and then once you find the vehicle that you want, then you have to now email the dealerships. Or if there's no response from the emails from the dealerships, then you have to call them and sacrifice your time from your workplace during the week actually to go and view these cars, right? On the other side, you have your dealers who are waiting for sellers, for buyers to actually walk through the doors and come inquire about the vehicles, which makes no sense because they have about 15 minutes to move per week. You understand? So this whole process does not make sense. So what we're doing as Car Find Me, we're actually trying to turn the tables around and say, look, as the buyer, you no longer have to do the hard work because you are the one who's credit worthy, you are the one actually who's got the money to purchase this thing. So rather, download the application, specify which car that you're looking for, and then submit. And then you can go back to your normal life. And then on the other side, your specification will go into a pool or community of sellers or dealership agents who have access to all the buyer profiles across the nation by vehicle type, by brands, and then they will actually start engaging you in terms of their vehicle that they have that matches your specification as a buyer. So we've turned the tables around and we say, look, instead of you searching for the cars, let the cars come looking for you. Now, when you look at the platform, I know a lot of people will be worried about safety, like all these kind of platforms that we've seen thus far. So we ensure that we've got a data policy, we've got a security policy that is still aligned to the POPI Act. And at the same time, we ensure that every user is actually verified on the application and their information is actually protected, right? So there's certain verification that happens at the back end to ensure that everybody is actually verified on the platform.
Venture capitalists from all over the African continent and possibly the rest of the world too are always looking for African projects they can find. But sometimes the problem is that they find projects that already have quite a huge chunk of funding. So what happens to those that are still in the beginning stages? Here's producer Lebo Mokomela.
Angula is an online platform where people can learn a variety of African languages. The app is what is considered an early-stage innovation by a startup, which, according to creator Mkonlenderi Dumela, is quite challenging to maintain due to lack of financial support.
So the way it's built is we work with experts and native speakers to record audio and to design 2-month courses which people can take through our platform. The way the application works is you spend 5 to 10 minutes a day on the platform. You learn various things in the language, and by the end of 2 months, you should be able to communicate in that language. It's been really difficult working on the project. The past 12 months have been a lot challenging for me and for our team. I think it's because our product is a combination of software and content. On the software side, because I come from a technology background, we are able to build a lot of what we need without funding. But on the content side of things, we expect and we need people to do recordings. It's been really hard to work on that.
Angula is one of many early-stage South African startups that struggle to see the light of day. Investors or venture capitalists are mostly reluctant to plow into such businesses, as they say they are too much of a risk.
It's difficult to fund startups. First of all, to fund somebody's idea that you don't even have maybe a prototype of it, you have not you don't have enough data to showcase that, or to show that this idea will work. I mean, that's a high risk to put money into that.
The Business Clinic founder Lakidi Dedu says that early-stage tech solutions like Angula can look at angel investing networks for funding. Such entities are willing to take a chance and invest smaller amounts of money in high-risk businesses.
Before even venture capital, we must talk about how do we bring in angel investors to come and actually journey with the startups in the early stages of the development. How do we leverage professionals who are sitting with really good and resources and are looking at deploying them somewhere? How do we leverage that particular space, but also leverage what is available within basically our development funding institutions that are already within the space? And once the companies are ready, then we can actually talk VC, because VC money just doesn't flow anywhere, but we need to build the steps and ensure that the startups that we build actually have monthly recurring revenues. And I think when one looks at the tech space, I mean, we can do that very well, within the tech space.
Another source of funding for early-stage startups are programs like the EBL, where best-performing startups are recognized and given the necessary support.
EBL stands for Entrepreneurship and Business Literacy Program. So what it does, this is the program that was actually created at the University of the Free State, tailor-made for the entrepreneur, right? There are no red tapes. It's not like the ones, when you go to university, you have to do you have to go through certain, scores and whatever. So with us, this is access to education for entrepreneurs. So it doesn't limit them. There are some entrepreneurs we take in who don't have matric even. So it's tailor-made, university accredited. This is how we give entrepreneurs credibility, so to say. And then it has got 2 tiers. We do training. It's NQF level 5. So when you complete it after 12 months, you get your NQF level certificate, which is a university qualification. And then we do also coaching.
In his speeches, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa reiterates that harnessing the job-creating potential of the digital economy is one way to forge a new economy. However, challenges such as funding for early-stage innovators are proving to be a hindrance to progress.
For the last 2 years, universities have been online with most of what they do, but things are opening up a bit more now. So after the break, we chat about which system they should use: online, back in the physical classroom, perhaps hybrid. It is the SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Welcome back. Now, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit in 2020, a lot of universities were abruptly disrupted and students had to go home. Many struggled with connecting online. Many couldn't connect online at first because they didn't have the resources to do so. There were also issues of a lot of lecturers who had never conducted online lessons before, and they too had to learn how to do this for the very first time. But now universities are going back into the classroom and things are opening up yet again. To discuss this a bit more and perhaps what should the way forward be is Luxolo Khubushe from Adapt IT. Hello and thank you very much for being a part of our network, Luxolo. Maybe if you can start by telling us how universities largely fared in the last 2 years.
I was actually quite impressed with regards to how our country was able to pivot from the B to the post, or at least during COVID era that we have now. There are a few key things that transpired during that period. I think the very first one was with regards to just access to tools and infrastructure that students and lecturers needed. Because up to that point, the tools and the devices were not necessarily mandatory, and one had to deal with that. The second thing that came through quite strongly was the issue of data, as Pumelele. Suddenly everybody needed data. And there was a lot of work that had to be done in terms of ensuring that students and lecturers can access the necessary infrastructure from home and be able to work effectively. But I think the one that really came through was with respect to the learning itself, the digitization that was required on the learning front. So a lot of institutions, the first thing they did was to look at how to get a learning management system, firstly.
Look, Donna, going forward, how do you think things should be now? Do you think it's going to be easy? Do you think it should be a hybrid system? Perhaps maybe it should be a fully online system?
A lot of institutions that we are speaking to have accepted that the future is actually hybrid learning. There will be definitely a continuity with regards to online teaching and learning. There are others, and for some practical reasons, that are still pushing for what would be face-to-face teaching and learning. And it becomes more relevant, especially when one is looking at elements such as internships or in-face or in-person kind of training that is required by learners. So broadly, there's an acceptance that there'll be a hybrid form of learning that takes place. You asked the question earlier with regards to part of the changes. One of the key things that has become quite important as a consequence of the COVID era is with regards to communication and the different forms of communication and the technologies that are now available to enable engagement between an institution and the student, and even a learner and the lecturer. And one of the key things that has come out of that was obviously the use of social media broadly. The likes of Microsoft Teams, I think, are basically quite standard now as a form of engaging between the teacher as well as the student. But from our perspective, we developed and have rolled out chatbot technologies in institutions of higher learning. And that became important primarily because at this era, because a lot of staff could no longer go to work, therefore there wasn't the kind of availability that used to be there before in terms of responding to a lot of questions that would be coming from students as well as coming from lecturers. And we had to look at ways in which we could actually embed certain types of technologies that enhance communication between teachers as well as students.
With the work that you do in the higher education sector, you've traveled the African continent quite a bit. Where would you say things are being done correctly, and which countries would you say have stuff that needs to be noted by those in the higher education sector?
So if I start firstly in East Africa, and we're talking about Kenya and Tanzania, there's actually a proliferation of private higher education institutions. So the contestation for students is quite high between those private higher education institutions as well as the public higher education institutions. So the ability to attract the right kind of student and ensure that you are able to attract not only the right in terms of the academic qualifications, but also students that are quite key with regards to their ability to afford their studies. It is quite intense on the East African continent. I think the other element that is quite the right kind of tools, especially when it comes to telecommunication support services. And we're talking about devices, we're talking about data and connectivity by and large. South Africa has got very well developed infrastructure. And East Africa as well is investing a lot in that space. And we know that also in countries like Ghana, there is a big effort to ensure that there is essentially that kind of support infrastructure that would enable the provision of services via the internet.
In 2020, it was touch and go. Do you think going forward, things are going to have a good footing? Are you optimistic about the future?
I think that's an interesting question for two reasons. I think firstly, our government has taken very decisive steps in terms of, for example, the provision of devices for students, as well as engaging a lot of these telecommunications companies so that they are able to provide data at an affordable rate. I've also had the privilege of engaging some of the telecom companies. And part of what they say is that while they are very keen to look at supporting education by and large, and they are making a provision for supporting education, that also for them, this is a business. This is the manner in which they actually conduct their business. And government and them, they have to find each other because it can't be a completely free service. And there has to be a hybrid model even there that is able to safeguard the interests of their business while being able to support education by and large. And I think it's for that reason that there are a number of sites that are zero-rated by these telcos so that students can get access to information and be able by and large to conduct their business of learning.
All right, Lutolo Khobushe from Adapt IT. He is head of education there. Thank you very much for being a part of our network. And with that, let's take a short break. SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back. Here's what else took place in the rest of the world in the tech space.
A calligraph robot brought Lunar New Year cheers on the eve of the festival to the media and staff participating in Winter Olympics. The robot, armed with 2 brushes, wrote the Chinese character Fu, which means prosperous, on red papers. Red is an auspicious color for Chinese culture. Chinese families would paste the red papers at the front door as a mean to ward off evil spirits in an act that they hope would bring prosperous to the family. In the US, popular US podcaster Joe Rogan has apologized amid a backlash against COVID-19 misinformation in his program. Speaking on a social media website, Rogan said in the future he would try to balance out these controversial views, referring to the COVID-19 septic guest he had hosted on his popular podcast, streamed on Spotify.
So my pledge to you is that I will do my best to try to balance out these more controversial viewpoints with other people's perspectives so we can maybe find a better point of view.
Rogan, a prominent vaccine skeptic, has stirred controversy with his views on the pandemic and on vaccines and government mandates to control the spread of the virus.
I am going to do my best in the future to balance things out. I'm going to do my best. But my point of doing this is always just to create interesting conversations and ones that I hope people enjoy. So if I pissed you off, I'm sorry. And if you enjoy the podcast, thank you.
Spotify CEO Daniel Ek wrote a post January 30 on the company saying the company had an obligation to do more to provide balanced and widely accepted information from the medical and scientific communities guiding us through this unprecedented time. Singer-songwriter Neil Young and Johnny Mitchell announced last week that they were removing their music from Spotify in protest at the coronavirus misinformation broadcast on the platform.
With Android reducing the capacity of the backup storage, we're asking you this week what your feelings are for this on our Twitter poll. And that's it. That's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram News Network at sabc.co.za on email. For me, Spumelele Zondi, and the rest of the team right here in Tandanani. Bye-bye.